discuss the Indian economics, and the chapter is first chapter, Indian economy on the eve of independence. Okay, so in this chapter we will discuss about the agriculture sector, industrial sectors, foreign trade, and demographic profile. So before discussion, you should know that India got freedom in the year 1947. Before that, India was under the control of Britishers, or India was the colony of British. A battle took place between the Indians and the Britishers, and that is known as Plassey. And in the War of Plassey, the Indians lost, and after that the Britishers established their rule over India. So after the independence, after the ruling of the Britishers, you find that how they tried to develop or how they tried to exploit the India. So after independence, what was the situation of Indian economy? Here we will discuss. So first of all, your first topic is agriculture sector on the eve of independence. Okay, so first, here we find that the Indian agriculture sector on the eve of independence can be characterized in the four parts. So four main important points which will indicate that our Indian agriculture was not only the backward, but it was also a stagnant. So first of all, backwardness of Indian agriculture. First, that is the low level of productivity. So level of productivity was extremely low. The extremely low productivity implied low level of output despite large area under cultivations. Okay, so low productivity indicates the backwardness of agriculture sector in our country. Second, that is the high degree of vulnerability. Agriculture showed a high degree of vulnerability because it was excessively depend upon rainfall. So good rainfall implied good output, while poor rainfall implied poor output. No effort was ever made under the British rule to develop the irrigational system in our country. Second is the next point is the uneconomic and fragmented land holdings. So on the eve of independence, Indian farmlands were fragmented. Fragmented means in the small part and scattered in pieces. Most of land holdings were uneconomic on the basis of eldings, low surplus, and so on. Next point is the dominance of subsistence farming. Subsistence farming is a system in which the farmer produces the goods for self-consumption. Their productivity was low. That's why they were not capable to sell their products in the markets. So here it is told most of the farmers were dominant over subsistence farming. Is it clear? Now, the next is the stagnation of Indian agriculture. the question will be asked, why Indian agriculture was stagnant at the eve of independence. So here there are so many causes, but I have taken only three main important points. That is the gulf between the owner of the soil and the tiller of the soil. So gulf means that is a gap between the owner of the soil and the tiller of the soil. Is it clear? Most of the owner of the soil were trying to uh, earn maximum profit, whereas the tiller of the soil wanted to uh, produce only those goods which was easier for the survival of the life. So a gap created between the tiller of the soil and the owner of the soil. Okay. Second is the land revenue system and the British Raj. So land revenue system at that time was very unique. You can say that land revenue system was based on Jamindari system. So most of the Jamindars were free from the providing the tax, or you can say Jamindars were not to pay any kind of taxes. Jamindar also restored to unlimited exploitation of the tillers of the soil. They frequently raised the land revenue and ejected the existing tiller in case they objected to the raise. So in this way, Jamindar always tried to exploit the farmers, and they were enjoying, or they were utilizing maximum land revenue for their own luxurious life in place of the development of the agriculture. Next is the forced commercialization of agriculture. So commercialization of agriculture refers to a shift from cultivation for self-consumption to cultivation for the market. So farmers were forced to shift to commercial crops such as indigo from the conventional subsistence crops such as rice. What was the reason behind it? So indigo was required by the textile industry in the Britain for dyeing or for the bleaching of the textile. So in this way, the farmers were forced to accept advance payments for the cultivation of indigo. It also made some pressure on the farmers not to produce the food grains. And what will happen if there is no food grains? So it compelled the farmers to depend on the Britishers. So in this way, we find that agriculture under the British rule was totally exploited as a source of unearned income by the landowners. This income was never invested in agriculture. It was spent by the Jamindars on their luxurious lifestyle. Consequently, on the eve of independence, agriculture sector was totally stagnant, or you can say the non-vibrant, or you can say it was totally backward. Okay, so these are the most important points. Now come to the next, that is the industrial sectors. Okay, so what was the condition of industrial sector on the eve of independence? So as we know that most of the population was engaged in the primary sectors and their condition was so miserable, so how the industrial sector will be better than the agriculture sectors. So some points I have taken here. The industrial sector on the eve of independence, that will be explained. First point I have taken here, decline of handicraft industry. Okay. So due to the discriminatory tariff policy which was implemented by the government or by the Britishers, all the handicraft industries was totally exploited or destroyed by the Britishers. The British needed raw material for their expanding industry, as well as they wanted to create a good market for their final products. They found that India is a good source of raw material, and if the handicraft industry will be totally exploited or it can be totally destroyed, it will become a very good market. So the Britishers implemented a discriminatory tariff policy. Here the word comes discriminatory. What it indicates? It indicates that all the exporter of raw material from the India were free from the taxes, and all the imports of the British industrial products into the India had given some tariff. So what happened? A heavy duty on the export of Indian handicrafts products increased the price of the products. As a result, the demand for the Indian products starts to decline, and in this way we find that our handicraft industry totally declined. Next point is the limited growth of public sector enterprises. Okay, so here we find that at that time the government didn't take any action for the construction of public sector enterprises. Whatever the public sector enterprises was developed by the Britishers, such as the railway, the main aim was to exploit the raw materials. In other words, we can say the railway was introduced for self-interest. So this was railway helped the Britishers to carry the products from the different corners to the ports, and the final products were distributed in all parts of the country. But our Indian rulers didn't take any response how to develop the industry in their own country. Next is the lopsided industrial sectors. Lopsided means you can say that industrial sector was not well developed. They were facing the problem of infrastructure, they were facing the problem of technology, they were facing the problem of better markets to sell their products, and that is known as lopsided industrial sector. Next point is the lack of basic and heavy industry. So basic and heavy industry are those industry which provides other industries for the growth and development. For example, we can take the iron industrial company will be considered as a basic and heavy industry. Energy, production of energy will come under the basic and heavy industry, because these industries provides raw materials, energy to the other countries, other industries. So in this way we find that lack of basic and heavy industry, other industry didn't uh, develop in our country. Next, I have not taken, but it is also most important, competition from the machine made products uh, and the handicrafts. So machine made products from the Britons were low cost products and gave a stiff competition to a handicraft products in India. Machine made products out excelled Indian handicrafts products in the on the basis of quality. As a result, the competition uh, forced the Indian craftsmen to shut down their enterprise forever, and in this way the handicraft also declined. Now come to the next topic, that is the state of foreign trade on the eve of independence. So here we find that the condition of agriculture and the condition of industry was not good. So how the foreign trade will be better? So first point I have taken, India became net exporter of primary products and importer of finished goods. As we know that India became the net exporter of raw materials and primary products like raw silk, cotton, wool, jute, indigo, sugar, etc. On the other hand, it became net importer of finished goods produced by the British industry. Our imports included cotton, silk, and woolen clothes. Besides, several types of capital goods produced in England. So, composition of export and imports reflects the backwardness of the Indian economy during the British rule. Second point I have taken, Britishers enjoyed monopoly control of Indians' foreign trade. There was a significant shift not only in the composition of India's foreign trade but also in the direction of trade. India was being ruled as a British colony, so export and imports of the country was in the hand of Britishers, and they got the monopoly right to control the trade. More than 50% of India's foreign trade was directed towards the Great Britain, while exports of primary products from India supplied imports to the British industry. So, imports of the finished goods from the Britain provided a huge market to the British industry. Next, we can say surplus trade, but only to benefit of Britishers. During the British regime, India's export exceeded her import, implying a surplus of balance of trade. But this surplus was owing largely to the export of primary goods, which is a sign of economic backwardness. Previously I told you. Owing to the huge export of primary goods such as wool, silk, cotton, etc. Okay? There was a domestic shortage of these goods. Still, worse was the fact that the trade surplus was not used for growth and development of the country. Instead, it was used to meet the administrative expenses of the British government in India. So, in this way, we find that the surplus trade was used only to meet the expenses of administration. Next, drain of India's wealth. So drain of India's wealth, what it indicates? It indicates that the surplus generated account of foreign trade was not used as investment for future growth, but was spent to enhance the colony pursuits of the British. Accordingly, we can say there was a huge drain of Indian wealth. Here you can also give some example. In the year 1914, the First World War started and the Britishers utilized this surplus amount for the expenditure on wars. So in this way, we can say most of the earned money was expended on the war in place of investment. Now come to the next. State of demographic condition during the colonial or colonial during the colonial rule. Okay. The question may be asked from you, explain the state of demographic condition during the colonial or during the colonial rule. Demographic condition means birth rate, death rate, high literacy rates and so on. Demographic condition during the British rule you can say explain the different features of the stagnant and backwardness of economy. Here I have taken some points. First, high birth rate and death rate. So high birth rate and high death rate implied low survival rate. We can say that the high birth rate also indicates the poor condition of any economy. According to data, you can say that in our country the death rate was nearly 48 out of 1000 and birth rate was 40% out of not 40%, 40 out of 1000. So in this way we can say the birth rate and the death rate in our country was very high. Someone asked some questions that 40 per thousand or 48 per thousand, sir, how it is the high birth rate and high death rate. So here you find that if 48 people are taking the birth and on the other hand 40 per thousand people are losing their life. So it indicates that there is a minor gap between the birth rate and the death rate. Next is the extremely low literacy rate. Here the literacy rate indicates that a person can read, a person can write, a person can count. Okay, so at that time only 16% people were literate. So out of 100, if only 16% people are literate, so it indicates the extremely low literacy rate. And if we discuss about the female literacy rate, it was nearly 6 to 7%. So this also indicates the gender bias in the society. Next is the poor health facilities. Okay, so at that time there was no medical facilities were available, no multiplicity hospitals were available, or we can say Ayurveda was the only source for the treatment of the life or treatment of the disease. So it indicates the poor health facilities. Next is the high infant mortality rate. So infant means the the newly born baby who is unable to celebrate his first birthday, that is known as infant mortality rate. In a simple word, we can say the death rate of the children below the age of 1 year is considered as infant mortality rate. It was about 218 per thousand. Think yourself, out of 1000 newly born baby, 218 lost their life before the completion of 1 year. So we can say that high infant mortality is a sign of poor health care centers or associated with extreme poverty. Next is the low life expectancy. Okay, life expectancy of a person means what? In born people, how many years can sustain his life in a better way. So at that time the life expectancy of the people was very low. It was nearly 32 years, and in some books you will find it was nearly 44 years. So low life expectancy also reflects lack of healthcare facilities, lack of awareness, as well as lack of means of avail them. Next point is the widespread poverty. Okay, so we have already discussed the high birth rate, extremely low literacy rate, poor health facilities, high infant mortality rate, low life expectancy. So why it happens? It happens due to poverty. People were unable to earn even were unable to sustain their life in a better way. So high mortality rate and high and low life expectancy are the important social indicators of backwardness and poverty on the masses. So during the British rule, frequent famines and epidemics took place, and due to that the poverty was all around. Okay, so in this way, in this topic I have taken only the 3 areas. One is the agriculture, 4 areas. One is the agriculture, second is the industry, third is the foreign trade, and fourth is the demographic condition. Now the remaining part I will discuss in the next video. Okay, thank you.